Don't events cause thought, which cause
Great
experience?
Great question. Situation or event, thought, feeling, right? So we're like situation, you said event, so I should say event. No, I can't turn the S into an E. Event, thought, feeling. Isn't the event the thing that causes the thought, which then causes the feeling? Great question. Anybody ever wondered that? Okay. No. That's the true answer. It's hard to wrap your It's hard to wrap your head around this, but the answer is no. Here's why we know the answer is no. I'm going to give you a few reasons why we know the answer. Situation causes the thought that causes the feeling. You know what that does? Is it makes the situation really big, and it makes the role of thought really small to the point of exclusion. But the reality is the other way around. Thought is really big. You wouldn't even be able to know that there's a situation going on without thought, right? Thought is really big, and the situation is kind of insignificant. We've made it significant by thinking it's significant. A spiritual master who's in the store in Loretta's position pays the lady at the shop the same compliment. Rude lady behind says the same thing. Spiritual master thinks nothing of it. Maybe says, may Allah have mercy on you. Or I don't know what a spiritual master would say. Right? But same situation, different way of looking at the situation, different thought. So if the situation caused the thought, then it would be stuck. It'd be like that situation causes that thought, right? Was it possible, hold on a sec, and ask me. Okay, was it possible that the same situation could have happened? Was it possible that Loretta could have had a different thought? Of course it's possible. She didn't, but it was possible that she could have, right? Loretta, is it possible that there's maybe 1,000, you know what? What else could Loretta have thought in that situation? Someone shout out, what else could she have thought? She's having a bad day. Great, what else could she have thought? I can't see it, I can't hear you. Speak louder. The rude woman was feeling unappreciated
that day, and
she could have had a thought of compassion, right? She could have had the. Now, here's the key. So are we clear? She could have thought anything. And now we've lived in a mixed paradigm. We've lived in a well, yeah, thought has something to do with feeling, but really situations cause thought. We've lived in that false paradigm. We've been living, almost everyone in this room, our whole lives. We haven't really been living absolutely outside in. We've all been living here in this idea that it's a mix. Sometimes situations cause thoughts and feelings. No, situations never cause thoughts and feelings. Because thought is a power and it's infinite. You can think anything. You can always think anything. You get that? There's no, like, yeah, she could have thought she'd had a bad day. She could have thought, poor woman. She could have thought, you know, there's lots of other ways of looking at it. There are a lot worse ways of looking at it. She could have thought, what an evil something. She could have had much worse thought than she had. She could have had much, but here's the key. Here's where what I'm going to say is different from what everybody else is going to say. I am not here to change what you think. I'm here to change what you think thought is and what you think thought does. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Before, it might have looked to you that thought was kind of just caused by the situation. But hopefully by the end of today, by the end of this seminar, it's going to be like, oh, thought is a spiritual gift from Allah. No situation can change it. No situation can change it. You put a prophet in the same situation, I think there's going to be some different thinking, right? You put a murderer in the same situation, I think there's going to be some different thinking. right? You put Loretta on a different day of the week in the same situation, I think there would have been some different thinking. You get that? Very, very common, and it's the first thing, because we're mixed. We're all mixed. We've all been living our whole lives. See, it's not like anyone in this room didn't know thoughts got something to do with feeling. Everybody knows that, right? Everybody knows that. Every psychologist in the world knows thought has something to do with feeling. Probably every human being in the world, I hope. I don't know, it's been a long time since I was not into personal development, but it's like the first book you read about psychology, it's going to be talking about thought. But the thing that we didn't know was that the power of thought, the nature of thought, the fact of thought as a spiritual gift that's way more powerful than any situation, that's way bigger than any circumstance that could happen, than any situation you could be in. It doesn't look that way when you're in the situation, right? When Loretta was in the situation, I bet Loretta was thinking, well, how could anyone react differently when the woman's being so rude, right? So Loretta in that moment probably looked to her, I mean, she didn't think all this through, evidently, because it was a reaction, right? But it probably looked like, how could you possibly react any differently when someone's being so rude? But that's when we're living in a outside in. That's when we're living in a the situation causes thought and feeling world. That's when we're living in a don't really get what thought, the role that thought is playing world. But when you get the role that thought is playing as the source of all experience, someone can be rude, and you're not feeling they're rude. You're not feeling they're rude. You're feeling, thinking, moment by moment by moment. Now, I can think about that lady being rude in a way that makes me feel really angry, right? All of us can. I can think about my family member that day, the day of my brother's wedding. I can think about my family member in a way that makes me really angry. I can think about it that way. But why would I do that now? It's like, when you realize thought causes feeling, when you realize thought and feeling are like this, they're inseparable, two sides of the same coin. And thought is a spiritual power, like consciousness and mind. It's a spiritual power that Allah's given us. Now, when I'm talking about thought, I don't mean the angry thought that popped up. I mean the power of thought, your ability to think. That's a power, and it's greater than everything else in the world put together. Thought is your connection with Allah. It's your connection with Allah. And it's greater than someone making a rude comment, which looks like a really big deal, which looks like such a big deal I couldn't possibly think anything different when they do that. No, that's ridiculous. Thought's the greatest power in the world. You can't even be alive without thought. A situation cannot determine thought. It's impossible. Impossible. And the simple question is, are there other ways to think about the situation? Of course there are. A million other ways. Can you make yourself think something different in the situation? I don't know. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. You know? But I'll tell you what I know for certain makes a difference. When you spend this weekend living here, realizing feeling comes from thought in the moment, it will show up for you. It will show up for you. The extent to which it shows up for you is the extent to which you really understand this now. The extent to which it showed up for Loretta was the extent to which Loretta understood it before that day. The deeper you understand this now, the more it will show up. There's nothing you can do to make the understanding show up for you perfectly. And here's the other thing. We can explain this once, we can explain it 100 times. You've got to see it insightfully. You've got to really get this. You're living in the feeling of thought in the moment. Thought is big. It's almost impossible to talk about the power of thought. It's almost impossible to talk about it. It's everything you know. It's everything you have ever experienced has been thought. It's the gift through which Allah gives you experience. It's the gift through which Allah gives you experience. Allah does not give you experience through someone swearing. Allah gives you experience through thought. And when that's clear to you, kind of doesn't matter what goes on around you.